That helps. Hi, welcome to the Board of School Trustees. We're going to go ahead and start by honoring our retirees this evening. And I've asked some of my colleagues to read their biographies because I talk enough during this meeting. So, George, would you like to go ahead and tell us about Mrs. Leisure?
So, business teacher Jana Leisure is retiring after a total of 12 years with the school corporation. Jana's journey with West Lafayette Schools goes back to her childhood. She graduated from West Lafayette High School in 1983. She began her career at the high school in 2011 as the front office secretary. In 2015, she moved to the media secretary position, where she remained until 2020. During her time at Westside, she was able to finish her bachelor's degree in business administration and then her MBA. From there, she received her business teaching license and taught elsewhere for a few years, only to, quote, come back home in 2022. She tells us the saying, home is where the heart is, truly relates to her time at Westside, and she has enjoyed every phase of it. During her time with West Lafayette Schools, Jana served as a faculty sponsor for Girls Who Code, which gives students the chance to learn coding in a supportive and engaging environment. She also served as faculty sponsor for Future Business Leaders of America. Jana took on the role of champion for the 3E grant, where she mentored students in partnership with Greater Lafayette Commerce. This was a years-long commitment to developing professional, collaborative relationships for students. Jana says that she learned that teaching is more than just following educational standards and objectives, which are no doubt important, but some of her favorite moments came from talking to students about their future by highlighting the many career paths in business in her classes, and college could open up. She says she loved researching scholarship opportunities and careers, creating budgets, teaching credit and debt management, home and auto purchases, writing checks and balancing a checkbook, even filling out a 1040 tax form. She tells us it was an honor to be able to share it with the many students in her classes. With deep appreciation for her many years of dedication, we celebrate Jana's retirement and the lasting impact she has made on our school community.
Great, thank you very much. Lawrence, would you like to go ahead and read Kathy Wolf's?
Cassie Wolf, after more than 30 years of dedicated service to the West Lafayette Community School Corporation, Cassie Wolf is retiring from her role as an elementary school teacher. Since beginning her career in 1993, Cassie has built a lasting legacies rooted in student-centered learning, compassion, and community engagement. Affectionately known by her student as the Wolf Pack, Cassie's classroom was a vibrant hub of curiosity, discovery, and academic growth. From dissecting oval palettes to designating city spaces, her hands-on project-based learning approach brought the curriculum to life in unforgettable ways. Her classroom was a place of challenge, growth, and high expectations, where students was inspired to rise to the occasion because they know she believed deeply in her potential. Through real-world applications, Cassie empowered her students to take ownership of their learnings, fostering independence, responsibility, critical thinking, and lifelong skills. Cassie's impact reached far beyond her classroom walls. As chairperson of Cumberland Cares initiatives, which involved to include the beloved school-wide popcorn sales, she guided her students in meaningful service learning. Under the motto, help us, help others, her students lead every step of the process, creating advertising, making announcements, toppling orders, managing delivery, and cleaning up. The fund raised supported a wide variety of courses, including disaster relief, school memorials, local first responders, the West Lafayette K-9 unit, Wolf Pack, animal shelters, and the West Lafayette elementary school students and the families in need. Through this work, Cassie taught her students the value of compassion, generosity, and community mindedness. Her classroom was always a place where the love of giving matched the love of learning. This message from Sarah Delaney. Cassie took pride in supporting our young learners as they grow in their independence and responsibilities. Organizations, study skills, life skills, and real-world applications of learning targets were the hallmark of Cassie's classroom. When walking into her classroom, the sound of wonder, investigation, and collaboration could be heard daily. Her love of children shone through each day, and her care for the teaching profession was evident. Cassie will be missed, and we wish her well in her much-deserved retirement. Sarah Delaney. We are deeply grateful to Cassie for her decades of passion, leadership, and heart. She had made an indelible difference in the lives of her students, colleagues, and the community. We wish her all the best as she begins this exciting new chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And I should note that we have virtual UA today, and we're sorry for the noise in the middle of that. And no, but we'll get that worked out. And our last retiree is being read by Rachel. Did that work?
She
think
can
it's
hear
working.
Amy.
Yeah,
Good.
can you
You
talk?
can hear?
I can hear Amy.
Okay, there we
Wonderful.
go.
Thanks.
Yes, Beth Scherer. Beth came to West Lafayette Junior Senior High School in August of 2012. She had 17 years of prior K through 12 teaching experience in special education, mostly in the Indianapolis area. When Beth took the job at Westside, she said she was looking for a part-time job, and she agreed to take a full-time position and kept it for 13 years. Beth's bachelor's and master's degrees are both from IU. She tells us there have been some interesting days at school leading up to IU-PU football and basketball games over the years, and some interesting days after those games as well. She says it's been a lot of fun, whatever the outcome. Beth served as department chair for 5 years during her time with West Lafayette Schools. She also sponsored the chess club and the Westside Unified Club at the junior senior high school. In Beth's earlier teaching years in Indianapolis, she coached Special Olympics figure skating, bowling, and track and field. Beth tells us that providing quality chances for all kids to be involved in the community is important to her. She says that although she is retiring from her special education teaching job, she hopes to stay involved in some of these programs that provide great opportunities for all kids. She says she considers herself very lucky to have found such a great place to close out her teaching career. Some comments. Getting to work with Beth has been such a privilege. She is a passionate special educator, an inspiring mentor, and an incredible colleague. Beth's support, kindness, and dedication have made a big difference in so many lives, including mine. That's Carla Girk. Beth is an incredibly hard worker. She is detail-oriented and has helped keep us all on track. She goes above and beyond every single day for students and staff. We are so lucky to work with her. That is Kay Stevens. And finally, Shelby Johnson says Beth Scherer puts the special in special education. She is one in a million. Her mind works in ways that often leave the rest of us wondering how she always thinks of everything. She has worked tirelessly over her career to support student success. She has been a true friend and colleague, and we will miss her dearly. And I will add one more to that. She is a big part of the reason why my daughter is a senior in special education this year. So she's inspiring the next generation of educators as well. We extend our sincere gratitude to Beth for her many years of exemplary service and unwavering commitment to education.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to note that our Representative Chris Campbell came to give plaques to our retirees, and we appreciate your being here. And in addition to virtual UA, David is out of the country, so he will be unable to join us. So I think that's all my notes for the good of the order. Congratulations to all our retirees. And the next item of business is communication from the audience, and we have Carl Janich. Come on down.
Committee's recommendations, but at the same time, we do want to stop serving things while respecting some continuing new concerns. For county community final down banning residents outright, now state law mandates that we include residents as well as parents in this process. But I think one of the things that we can do is honor that by requiring a signed residency affirmation and limiting each person to one active request at a time. That way, such committees would not be overburdened with organized campaigns when happening. But without breaking any limiting district, because with there was mentioned about district-wide limits for certain reasonable consideration. But by default, any approved removal applies only to school boards. But I think one of the things that we need to consider is potentially saying that 2/3 of the first committee that we would be hiring for this, or that would be selecting for this, should agree to have a title advantage across every campus. That way we respect the least restrictive alternative principle, but ensuring broad enough educational consensus for this stuff. These 5 things cost nothing, fully comply with the statutes, that I understand in the work, and deliver a process that's fair, transparent, and yeah, just want to thank you for steadfast and every leader in West Lafayette.
Can you reiterate your third point about, I think it was reconsideration, I missed what you said.
So it looks like there's not really a big guardrail against, like suppose you get a decision you don't like. Refiling that decision at many times. And I think one of the things that considering there, so I think, and it said you have to have extenuating circumstances to do that. That's not really well defined.
I see.
We need to define what is more.
Thank you for your thoughts. I really appreciate your time and consideration of that issue. Thanks. Okay. Another note, in the consent agenda, we have included the meeting calendar for 2025 and 2026 for these meetings. And I wanted to note that the August meeting has been moved to the first Monday. Wanted to note that on the consent agenda on the calendar, the August meeting has been moved to the first Monday of the month in consideration of our new hires, so that we can affirm them and get them fully on board prior to the beginning of school. So with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I want a motion to pull off the accounts payable. This is a unique month where we have an additional document, so it would be helpful, in my view, to clarify what we're voting on. So I'd like to pull that off.
Is that something that you could ask a question, or is it something we need a fully separate vote on?
So my understanding is consent agenda, there's no discussion, but.
Right, but to streamline things, if.
So however you want to have it, it's just for Dr. Griner to clarify that we're not just voting on the accounts payable, but what other documents we're voting on.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean.
So in other months, we vote on just the accounts payable, but this month they've added an additional document. So I just want clarification, just so that it's clear what we are voting on.
Pre-approval for Target.
Oh, okay. Would you like to explain?
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks.
Yes, and we're good not pulling it as long.
I'm
yeah.
fine with that.
So the memo that you've received from Mrs. Cronk is when we're working with Target, they've requested, because they're putting a lot of materials into the work initially, and they had originally requested, could we be paid in advance? And the response was no, the work needs to be done. So it wouldn't come on that we're requesting payment, but that we're requesting payment when the work is done. So it looks a little different, as Mrs. Mumford stated. And therefore, the board is voting to approve payment, assuming that the work is done. So once we've verified the work is done. That way, we're not being presumptuous. We're not agreeing to pay them until the work is done for that portion of the payment.
Does that make sense? Okay, great, thank you.
Do you still want to take it off the consent?
I just wanted clarification that the vote was taking place. I'm just.
Perfect. Okay, then I need a motion on the whole consent agenda, please. Rachel?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting, please.
Great. And Lawrence seconds. All right, all those, oh, the buttons, all those in favor. How are we going to do Yui's votes tonight?
We have to do roll call because she's virtual.
We have to do roll call.
Verbal roll call.
Perfect, okay. In that case, Yui, your vote?
Yes.
Yes. Rachel?
Yes.
Daisha?
Yes.
Lawrence? George?
Yes.
And that means we are 6 out of 6 for this evening to approve. Okay, next. New business. Dr. Greiner, talk to me about the strategic plan.
Be happy to do that. In your board packet, we included what we expect to be the final draft of the strategic plan, along with a one-page snapshot summary. We'd like to give Mr. Jones an opportunity to review the highlights of the plan, while also taking a few minutes to view the process that he took us through, reaffirm community support, and then. I thought I was on there.
No,
Was that not on?
no.
Sounded like.
I
you were.
apologize. Regardless, thank you. And then highlight major goals. From there, Mr. Jones is going to entertain questions from the board. He'll take comments to get to a final edit for approval. Once the final comments from the board have been reviewed by administration and Mr. Jones and final revisions are made, the plan will be placed on the August agenda with a recommendation for the board to vote for approval. Mr. Jones, at this time, would you please present where we are with the plan and then facilitate questions?
Thank you, Dr. Greiner, and good evening, everyone. Great to be back. We are almost there with this plan. It's really exciting. Just as a really quick summary, we have collected nearly 2,000 survey responses. We had in-person meetings at every school. We facilitated in-person drafting workshops for staff and community members. We also did some virtual meetings, and it was really a wonderful experience. So this draft that you have before you represents the comments of many, many members of the community. And so we have a detailed strategic plan, which I think comes out to 8 pages. There is some white space there, so it's not just 11-point font or anything. It's meant to be digestible. And then a one-page overview that highlights those values and those goals and that more succinct vision and mission statement. So I would welcome any comments or questions so that I can take some detailed notes from all of you to prepare a final draft for your consideration in the near future.
Okay, Daisha?
My first question is, I'll just go in order of the goals, if that's okay.
Please.
2.3A and 2.3B. I just wondered if you could clarify a little bit more what this actually would look like.
Yeah, I think the format itself would still be to be determined. I think the vision of these statements is to say, we know that West Lafayette is an amazing school district. Unfortunately, some families are choosing other educational options. So how do we really celebrate what we do? And there are so many numerous things. What does that plan look like to communicate those excellent educational opportunities so that every family that comes across West Lafayette as an option is well aware of all the pathways for their students, regardless of their given talents and their interests.
So is it just the 3 of them? It looks like the superintendent, communications coordinator, engagement specialist, they're just meeting together and going to create a plan themselves? Is there data being given to them from what was collected with this? Like, what does that pathway to get to this look like?
That's a really good question. The far right column is meant to indicate that those are just the leaders of the work, not to represent the only participants in the work. And so the data, some of the data that might go into this plan is a result of what's been gathered through this process, but it could also require some more analytical data of transfer reports that the state publishes, as well as more anecdotal evidence from our successful alums, our staff, and other community members who want to highlight certain stories and opportunities in the community. I don't know if Dr. Greiner or others want to add on that process piece.
No. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Ms. Mumford, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I say, though, I do feel like a lot of what has been described in terms of anecdotal from alumni and other engagements in community, a lot of that is redundant to the work of the Education Foundation. I just think we have to be, consistent in collaborating with them on those types of things, rather than just going out and wasting energy on recreating work that they're doing.
I'll make a note to be mindful of that possible redundancy of effort.
I have a couple, but I'm happy to.
Please.
Okay, so my next one is about 3.2. And the question is, it talks about sorry, I have to find, there's just so much. It says evaluate assignment, homework, and assessment systems to promote rigor while minimizing unnecessary stress. So I take that promote rigor to mean kind of depth and quality of assignments versus just a bunch of extra work. And so it, kind of that critical thinking instead of just rote memorization is what I think we're good at and what we're encouraging, if I understand from the terminology. It feels like in 3.2, we're addressing the workload and saying, let's look at that. But then we don't have anything that's kind of addressing that academic rigor about what can we be doing to encourage this higher level, or like it feels like the goal encouraged two things, but yet our actual measure only encouraged one part of it, if that makes sense.
I think that's really strong feedback. And the word rigor there is meant to convey a lot, and maybe it's worth unpacking that a little bit. It's meant to say that for those students that are either on grade level or not yet performing on grade level, we're giving them developmentally appropriate tasks to extend their learning and accelerate their learning. It's also meant to say that homework is not just busy work. It's meant to elevate learning, even for those students that are advanced. And so I think it's really wise to maybe add a word or a phrase there to emphasize it's not just about scheduling, it's also making sure we're aligned on that term.
I think that would be great.
On that note, though, I do think that it's important to recognize that our teachers are the educators, and different students, some students benefit from repetition and practice, and some students benefit from really aggressive timelines to get through content. And so while I agree that you could round that definition out a little bit, I would struggle with any language that would try and bind teachers to a particular methodology, because ultimately it's their classroom to determine and know their students and work through what's best for them. So I wouldn't want to swing that too far the other direction, if that makes sense.
It does, that's a wise caution. I think Dr. Yen had a hand up.
Anyway, yeah.
Go ahead, Yue.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think Sean said he will forward my questions to you. Not sure you have read them.
I do have them and I have read them, yes.
Okay, I have suggestion, also questions. My suggestion is for the first of all, I think it's great to see the plan, and I do feel that it addresses the common problems I often hear about, and also I like the slogan in the EEA, excellent education for all, but just a slight modification. I wonder whether we can change that to excellent education for everyone. Because first, everyone feels more personalized, and it shows that we care about each individual's educational needs. And plus, I think excellent education for everyone give us a strong acronym like EEE. We can call it E cubed or EEEE or something kind of easy and to memorize. And that's my suggestion. And then as for my questions, and oh, by the way, I think in the previous discussion, we talked about the two names, and I remember some other board colleagues recommended that. I think that's a good idea. And another several questions I have are, first, And what are the building committee in couple of places you mentioned that? I wonder who will serve on those committees, how those members will be selected. And my second question is how will teachers, parents, and the students participate in each of the initiatives? I think they are great initiatives. I just wonder, how different people participate in to brainstorm ideas or implementation. And the next one is what's the board's role beyond the listed leaders for each category? Because the board members are not listed there, but I wonder at what point the board members will be part of it. And the next question is how will we evaluate the result of each of the initiative? And the last one is the timeline. And so, yeah, you don't have to answer all those questions at this time, but just when I read that, that's the things I have in mind. And I think probably Sean already shared that with you.
Yeah, I have those questions right in front of me and really appreciate them. I'll tend to answer the ones that I feel most comfortable with, and then I'll look to Dr. Greiner to jump in or others. I think the 3 E's is actually a really good marketing suggestion. I'll defer to this group. I mean, I like that, having EEE. You can kind of use that in a variety of ways. I also think that word everyone, although it's a synonym for all, does emphasize more of an individual, everyone. So I align with your thinking there, if the team does here. I see some nodding.
Semantics don't bother me.
Okay, this allows not to worry about it. In terms of the building committees, intentionally, they're not specified here. The idea is that the building leaders and the district administrators would form those committees. Dr. Grant, I don't know if you want to jump in on those.
I think you're exactly correct, and we would want to go back and discuss with the admin team. And it might be now, if the board wants that now, or it might be more appropriate to, as we're tackling it, to communicate like we do and take input. But I would hesitate to make a decision right this minute because I think you'll want to facilitate with the leadership, and then we can communicate that back and forth with the board before the board votes to approve, if the board is wishing to have those committees defined beforehand.
And your very excellent question about how are teachers, parents, and students involved? There's an underlying assumption that they're involved in most or all of these in a really meaningful way. And if we need to spell that out in some front matter, like there's a letter that Dr. Greiner will send out with this strategic plan that sort of says a few pieces that are contextual. We can certainly do that to be appropriate, but we didn't think it makes sense at this time to list like all teachers as leaders of an initiative, because the reality is there'll probably be a handful of leaders on different initiatives in different spaces. In terms of the board's role, again, I'll defer to all of you and the district team. You know, the board's role as governance and accountability is paramount. I don't want to speak for any of you in terms of your desire to get in the weeds and create documents or deliverables or lead meetings, and that's why you're not listed in the column, but it's not meant to suggest at all that your voice is not critical to the work. And then the results of each initiative, the progress measures that are listed there in that middle column, we would hope that on an annual basis, at the minimum, we're collecting the quantitative and or qualitative pieces, and this body is reviewing that as reported by school leaders and or the district, so that you can provide the governance and accountability and feedback that's necessary to continue making progress on the plan. And the timeline, we try to be mindful that this is a new plan. There are lots of moving parts, and we've tried to phase in some of the initiatives happening in the first year or first 2 years, and then postponing the achievement of some other initiatives to years 3 through 5. We know that we can do multiple things at once, but we also want to be mindful of the load we're putting on our staff. I welcome your feedback to those responses.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the information. It's very helpful. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you.
I have a question for you. In the leaders column for all of these, where did those come from? Who made the decision to list the specific types of leaders for each initiative?
Yeah, that was a discussion that I had with the district team and thinking about who would be best situated. We welcome your feedback on if those are the right roles and people to list there.
And I'll add that it originated with Adam putting what he thought.
Yeah.
And then we gave details, like if there was a leader that it made sense that he wasn't even aware we had in the district. We gave him that input. So it originated with him and as a draft, and then we met as a team and had additional dialogue with him.
And this is a strategic plan, not a strategic specific assignment, right?
Right.
Okay, so all, even once we approve the plan, all this can be changed at a granular level, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to say that I hope that this is a living document. Can be folly to try to predict what's going to happen 3 years from now, especially in today's world. So this is our best intentions today, and if leaders need to change progress measures, if phrases need to be tweaked in initiatives, I think that there's a great appetite for doing so.
Anyone have anything else? Stacia?
On goal 4 and at the beginning, it talks about expanding capacity. I feel like that lends itself to possibly some confusion, that we're not looking to grow the school district through this goal. It feels like, if I understood it correctly, it's more about strengthening our ability to meet needs. So that one just was a concern that had caught my attention, and actually another community member actually had made the same comment to me, asking about if we're talking about expanding capacity, and I was like, no, that's not what I think the goal of this is, so I just didn't know. I mean, I can have dual meanings.
Yes.
So just to clarify, I didn't know if that would be something that would be considered.
I want to make sure I summarize the concern accurately. So we are not, to your to validate one thing you said, we are not talking about expanding facilities,
Okay.
expanding student seats, other than reducing the number of students who choose to leave West Lafayette. This is about expanding service capacity for students, staff, and families. And it may be really helpful to clarify that there.
Yeah, even put the word service capacity in front of it, I think would
Okay.
quickly just clarify, because it's not, we could be wanting to do either one,
Yeah.
in my view, with that.
And Daisha, may I?
Yes, please.
The patron you were talking to, were they concerned about a potential
They
expansion?
just asked on that
Okay.
one. They had seen that we had the transfer discussion also on our agenda, so they said, what are your plans?
I got
And
you.
I said, there's been no discussion, this is all, I have no idea. We're just chatting. So that was what I had gotten so far.
Great comment. Thank you.
Okay, so another question is goal 4 under goal 4, the progress measures 4A and 4B. To me, they felt like just continue what you're doing. And to me, that's maybe not the strongest goal. I think, can't we do more? So that was what I was wondering, is can we make those stronger or do more than just saying, keep supporting them? What action items could we actually, when we come back as a board, what could we say that they have actually done to consider feedback and strengthen relationship versus what it just looks like today is a question. And I don't know. I mean, you could convince me that it's good just to say continue. I didn't know your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I'll share how we landed here. These progress measures went through a couple versions. They didn't start as continue, they landed on continue. The reason that phrasing was used was to acknowledge that there's already strong work in these areas. That's not to say that there isn't some opportunity to add some concrete qualitative or quantitative measure there, and I'm certainly open to that. Dr. Greiner and team, would you care to add any context there?
And feel free to chime in here, Anna, since it's Dr. Greiner and team. But as I recall, when we all had the dialogue about it, it was about exactly what you just said, that we are partnering. We do have parents that come to the table and serve in amazing ways in parent council, and even in amazing ways at home supporting our students and their learning. I mean, we are blessed in this community. So not only do we want to embrace what we have and continue to celebrate that, but we do want to continue to understand perceptions, perspectives of families, and continue to not only celebrate what we have that's wonderful that many districts may not have to the level that we have, but to even go further if we can expand. And so that's why continue was important to the team. Am I recalling that correctly, Mrs. Roth? Thank you.
My addition to that would be that while the relationships and the practice and the policy are consistent, the external situations, funding, societal changes, those types of things, those are going to continue to change. And so while it might sound like a static piece, it's really a progressive piece to say we're going to continue to make this important. And we're going to continue to address changes and challenges as they come along with our families. So that's how I interpreted the reading of that, was that, hey, society, we're ready to go. Let's get it figured out. That was my layperson's interpretation.
I appreciate, and if I recall, Mr. Jones, am I correct too, that in this one, we saw comments in the surveys where I may not come to the parent council meeting, but I'm here to serve and support our schools, even if it's a donation or walking during a referendum. I can't come every day and be a part of such and such, but I want to be a part, and I am a part, and I want it to be known that I'm always looking for ways to support our schools because I value learning.
Even in bite-sized opportunities, that's what emerged in the feedback. Like, I may not be on a council, but I'll do that one afternoon because that's important to me to have that opportunity to serve. You know, this is occurring to me in real time, so, but maybe instead of continue, and I really like what you said, Ms. Witt, maybe there's a need to say something like continue and maintain excellence of these elements. Is there a reaction to that? Thank you.
I guess I'm just wondering, how can we push it further? To me, the strategic plan seems to be saying, we are amazing, we know that. How do we be better? And to me, those two goals is just saying, we're doing a great job, let's keep doing a great job. And I'm saying, wait a second, here's our opportunity to have some like pushes. How can we support and partner with the parent councils and do even better? How can we gather input than we're already doing? And so that's where I guess I'm trying to see, you know, that we're excelling in it and stuff. I think great, but I could have said that a year ago before you came and spoke to us and put this together. What is this strategic plan giving us is, I guess, what I am hoping to see on that one. And that was actually my same question with goal 5. You know, so I think it's the same conversation, is continue reviewing. So I would love to see more progress or innovation. Like, I would love to see our parent councils and these topics where we're a leader in it, not just continuing the status quo, I guess is what I mean on those 2 points with those words is what I was thinking of.
What about the word build partnership with?
By, but I guess I'm like, by doing what, I guess is what I'm thinking of.
What I am hearing is a desire for aspirational language, right? It just says, hey, this is what we want to accomplish. Perhaps it is, but I also feel it's important to not necessarily tie our administration to say, you know, hey, we're gonna accomplish these 3 things by the time we get together next year. So I would feel more comfortable with that kind of aspirational language that says, consider new opportunities. So we're going to evaluate this and we're going to consider new opportunities. So just simply adding in a little bit of, I mean, it's a few words, would make sense to me.
The goal does already say that we're going to identify areas for continuous improvement. Maybe we would just put that at the start.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Very helpful feedback. Ms. Mumford, is there a progress measure in mind, a action that you think would reflect that initiative? For 4, for 5, 4 or 5-1?
That one I didn't come up with a brainstorm.
Okay.
The other ones I did brainstorm.
Turn on your mic. Thanks.
But I'm happy to ponder that a little bit more anyways, and think, like I said, I was just hoping to see something, you know, what are other school districts? I don't know. We have a lot of resources in our community of people, and I've heard things of people that are like, in this parent council, they do this. I think it was even like Maria one time shared some things she did in Detroit with the PTA and how that was able to strengthen them. And I remember thinking, oh, that may be an option for ours. So maybe it's even something about, you know, gathering input of what are strengths in other communities that we could adapt in ours. Not saying ours isn't great, but learning from others, gathering input or something like that. I think we're awesome, but I would like to see us change, you know, be better.
I think the unique, wonderful challenge that you all have is you're up here, right? So maintaining that is an incredible achievement. That's not to discount what you said.
No, I agree with you.
And then on the safety front for 5-1, just almost universally, students, staff, families, community members said, hey, we feel really safe here. So,
Good.
it was difficult to identify, like, what would it mean to be safer? Because I think people do feel that they're safe in these environments.
That's great. Is there anything else for the good of the order? George?
Yeah, on the goal 5, I think in a place like this, even the act of asking makes people feel comfortable. Just that they know that we're always looking for ways to improve. So even if we're already doing all the things that we know how, the idea that we're actively going out to people saying, hey, how do you feel about this? And continually taking the temperature, I think that's a worthy goal in and of itself.
Team, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your work on this. If we continue this dialogue, I think it's our plan to bring this for a vote in August. So
That is correct, and
We'll
I'd like to
make
say
sure-
thank you again, Mr. Jones, for being here.
Thank you all very much.
thank you. Okay, moving right along, we've got item number 11, the English Department novel adoption. Mrs. Roth.
A recommendation to adopt and purchase novels for select ELA classes at the junior and senior high school was included as part of the board packet. The recommendation titles were selected by teachers after considering the input and feedback from families in an initial survey regarding preferences and other recommendations, and after considering the review feedback from randomly chosen volunteer parent reviewers. You are asked to approve this recommendation.
Okay, I need a motion, please. Rachel?
I'll make a motion to approve the English department novel adoption as presented.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Lawrence? Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do the roll. Oh,
sorry.
Yue, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just made several suggestions on Friday, and so I think just repeat my suggestions. I think in the future, first of all, I really appreciated that we have right now streamlined the process, the adoption process, and invite parents to provide feedback. And I really appreciate that. And just for the future, I think it will be helpful to send the link to the book with, for example, Amazon link or something where people can see the book directly. And because otherwise people may not have time to go to the library to see the book and during the limited time frame. And also I appreciate that and I think Sean said the English department also got input from the community regarding book recommendations. I think that's great because we have a very diverse community, and it would be nice for students to read books from diverse culture and to increase their global competency. And I think that's great. Just to repeat what I said on Friday.
Thank you for reiterating that. Anyone else have anything? Okay, Yue, I'll start with you again for the vote. To approve?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Yes.
Daisha?
Yes.
Lawrence? George?
Yes.
And I say yes, so that is 6-0. Thank you very much. Now, we are going to move to the policies, and this is going to be a new experience, which is always fun and exciting and a little scary. So, because we can't vote this or that, we're going to present the policy as it was given to us, and then each individual edit by paragraph will be up for a vote. So Rachel, go ahead and.
Right, so at first I'll thank David and Lawrence. We had a really productive, and Sean and Anna and Michelle and very, very Roberta, oh my goodness. We had a very productive policy committee meeting and really we're able to get through quite a lot. And this format that you're seeing in terms of our documents to vote and discuss on the second reading is the result of that conversation, and hopefully this format works well and we can continue it on policies going forward. So just as an overview tonight, we have 4 policies that are up for second reading. And then we have 5 policies that are new that are up for first reading that we'll get to after that. So the idea is that we'll go through and we'll start with A125. Everything in black text is what was given to us by the attorney. So that is the legal recommendation for our policy. In some cases, we had recommendations from board members for specific language. So when you see that, it's in blue in the policy recommendation, and that's not in all cases, but if we have just pulled feedback from a board member and put it in there, it is going to show up in blue. And then you'll see that there are some paragraphs that have a green text in there, and that is the recommendation of the policy committee. So we've reviewed it in red and green and said these are the additions we recommend as a committee, and in red strikeout, these are the additions that we, or the things we recommend eliminating from it. So as we go through, and you can see it on your agenda, each paragraph, we were working with the numbering of the paragraph system. And so if you go through, it's just what it sounds. We numbered them from beginning to end. So if there are questions or feedback about the way that we're trying to do this, please let Lawrence or David or myself know that. But hopefully this format makes it a little bit easier to vote. As Amy indicated, if you, as we read through these, there will have to be a motion for any particular paragraph. And so I would ask Amy if we could allow discussion before the motion, because otherwise it's not really going to work very smoothly. So if we could go out of order a little bit, that'd be dandy.
Do you want to go ahead and give the rationale for the first one in paragraph 6?
Sure. So A125, nepotism, conflict of interest, gifts, and use of corporation resources. All of this is pretty standard fare, and I think in general the policy committee felt that it was appropriate. If you get down to paragraph number 6, the initial policy or initial paragraph reads, any employee has reason to believe that he or she may have conflict of interest is required to disclose the potential conflict. We just added a little bit more precise language to say any school board member who believes they may have a potential conflict of interest must disclose the potential conflict annually in January. So that's aligned with our organizational meeting using the disclosure form found here. And that here word will be a live link to the form. A copy of that form, it's a state of Indiana form, is also provided in your board packet.
Okay, so is this the point where you want me to ask for motion?
If somebody wants to make a motion to accept paragraph number 6 with or without the green text, that would be what we're going for.
That'd be great.
I have a question. When did you say you wanted the order of questions?
Now it's fine.
Right before the motion?
Sure.
So I don't know how this works. Why don't employees do it annually? And I don't even know who knows this. Why are only school board members supposed to do it annually and not employees?
Dr. Reiner, that was one that you really led the conversation on. Do you want to touch on that one, please?
I think that's more, it's board policy and the board's voting to approve it. So the board would need to do that annually, make a disclosure that if you're going to vote on approving something, that you're voting on things that, that don't conflict interest.
Because this is all new to me. I had understood when we talked about this months ago that like in some school districts annually, they have all employees and board members complete one of these forms. They reach out and say, you know, if there's anyone that has a conflict of interest, please fill out this form, and we do it once a year, is what I had understood from a previous conversation. But I don't know, I haven't, is that typical, or is it only typical for an employee to do it there one time and then the board does it annually?
I don't recall the district, I don't recall the discussion, but I'm not aware, in a district I've ever been, I'm not aware of that happening. Yeah. Is that accurate? Are you aware of one? I guess is what I should ask.
Both ways.
You've seen employees sign that they have conflicts.
Every year. And
Do you want to explain that? Because that's not something I've seen.
Oh, You're not on yet. Sorry, there's too many.
And Anna, feel free to chime in on what you've experienced. too.
I've heard it both ways. We've had some that, in my previous district that did it every year, and then we had some that only did it if one came up at the time that it came up. So,
Having experienced any pros or cons to either, I don't know a lot of how this even works. You don't know an advantage or disadvantage to either.
it's just a housekeeping thing that, yep.
So the board doesn't, or the administrator and or the teacher doesn't vote to approve. So when you've seen it, what are they doing it for?
They were so employees were doing it if they were related to a board member. If they were by chance, their husband owned a business that the school was working with or something like that. Those are just the two that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's been a few years, sorry.
I mean, to me, it seems helpful. It feels like this has been something that's been law for a long time, yet it's not something that's been done in our school district. I think it would be helpful to just have it say, any employee or school board member who has it does it annually, and then it's just a reminder to everyone, if you have something, you need to disclose it. There's no confusion. There's no anything like that is a thought, but I don't know what others think about that.
Rachel?
I understand what you're saying, and it is true that we could, hammer every nail on this, but in my way of thinking, our teachers particularly, they already do an extraordinary amount of training, they already do an extraordinary amount of paperwork, they already do a lot of this. In the case of a spouse of a board member, it would be upon the board member to make that disclosure, and the spouse doing it also is fairly redundant to that. Presumably, they both know they're married. So really, it comes down to if in that situation where somebody's maybe married to someone with a family member who owns a business, but given they're not making the decision to purchase, it's somewhat irrelevant to that. Ultimately, board members raise their hand and take an oath to make the good decisions and follow the law, and ultimately are held accountable for those decisions and any perversions to those decisions. So that's my thought. Those are my thoughts.
So in reading this, I'm actually got a concern. So if I'm reading this correctly, are we saying that employees cannot have a conflict of interest at all? Because it says employees shall not engage in or have a financial interest in any activity that conflicts or raises a reasonable question of conflict of interest with his or her responsibility to the corporation. Now, the very next set of words makes it sound like school board members can, as long as it's disclosed.
It's a good question, George. This is the content was provided directly from legal counsel. So my inclination is to say, I have some confidence in their ability to navigate any situations that arise, but because they're telling us that this is the language they would use, when we were looking at this revision, it was just very important to us that we specify the form and that we make that form accessible for people to see. That was really what we were focused on adding on in this paragraph.
And that because the reading, it could be interpreted as, for example, if one of our teachers also runs an ice cream food truck, the district would be prohibited from hiring that food truck. And is that a road that we really want to take?
Yeah, I did not read it in that way, but
Well, in the previous paragraph, it says a conflict of interest occurs when a school board member or employee knowingly or intentionally may benefit financially from a contract with the corporation. So first, it would have to be a contract, not necessarily just a transaction. So if I own a cookie making business and the school purchases 100 cookies from me, I may financially benefit, but that's not a contract. It's not formalized in that way. The way if I owned a tennis court rehab facility, it would be more of a contract. So I don't know that we need to so much worry about the decisions that employees would be making if, say, their spouse were to own a retail establishment because that's not a contract, right?
Well, it does say or a purchase, so it's,
Or a purchase. Oh,
it does wrap around.
it does. But I just think that it's more focused on the school board because we're the ones with the high value transactions going across our desk. You know, I don't think they're so much worried about 100 cookies as they're worried about $1 million deal to refurbish the gym floor. I think that's the scale of thing that we're looking at here. That it's, am I correct, Michelle, that it's more of a things over the level of $50,000 that would come across the board's desk as a contract? It would be that kind of transaction, not necessarily Amy's daughter is selling Girl Scout cookies and she brings the list to school, right?
It's something involved with the operations of the school corporation.
So operations
Like, for
specific.
instance, I will say that Kokomo, based upon the law, I think we went above and beyond what was required by law. Now, me, because I make recommendations, and Dr. Greiner, because he makes recommendations, we would disclose if we had a conflict of interest, if anything were to arise, because we're the ones making the recommendations.
Right.
But I think the meaning of the law is really the school board, because you are the ones approving everything.
Excuse me. Right, that's how I read it too, was that it's the big stuff. It's not the little, you know.
Yeah, but that's kind of my worry. If we're getting to the point where we're talking about how we read something, that means it could be read in 10 different ways.
Which, to me, it feels like, but correct me if I'm wrong, George is talking about paragraph 5 that says about employees, doesn't talk about contracts. And then the other conversation has been about paragraph 8 that's talking about contracts. To me, there's different points being made. And it feels like that the employee discussion isn't about contracts, it's about that paragraph before. So I don't know if we need to send this back to legal counsel and see what they recommend, or I don't know. It feels like we're not ready for this.
Honestly, I think we should, because, normally you take a policy as its whole document, and this particular conflict of interest policy, I don't think it does precisely what we want it to do.
I would like us, if you don't mind, to please go down and look at 15 and 16, so we can also have those discussions about this policy tonight.
Absolutely.
Policy Committee proposed revision to paragraph 15. You will notice that we've substituted non-monetary for nominal in both paragraph 15 and paragraph 16. The reason for that is really to honor some segments of our community culturally believe it's very important to give teachers cash as a sign of good fortune and well wishes, and that's culturally important, and we want to honor and respect that. And so the idea of this is that we would allow a nominal gift, and yes, that is a subjective term, but we're going to leave that at the discretion of our superintendent to determine what nominal means. And that they could give, the small red envelope with whatever that token money is. And that would also include things of a cash value such as gift cards. So,
Okay. Does anyone have any issues with the word nominal instead of non-monetary there, George?
I don't have any issues with it, considering the statement about the superintendent shall develop such procedures that is necessary. I will just give you a gentle warning that you probably should keep notes so that you're consistent, because someone will notice if 1 year you approve somebody getting $100 and the next year you approve somebody getting $250.
I think we're more talking about things in the under $50 range is what we're in the small gift category here. Nominal, I don't know about your budget, but nominal to me is lower than that number.
I mean, we have to consider all the things, because,
True. It's true.
while I am a public employee, there are people that own startups here, so their definition of small is going to be a little different.
Fair.
Okay,
All right,
so
so the decision is to take this one back to legal for clarification on employees and
yes.
the nature of,
Yeah, and also on board disclosure, because we do talk about disclosing things we know about in January, but you may not always know what kind of contract's going to come up in October. And there's actually nothing in there that says you need to disclose. It just says that you can't benefit. So, if, I'd like to say exactly what we're going to do, and I'd like to put it in words that nobody's going to try and do something underhanded. I know we're, legally bound by our oaths not to, but it's always good to say it in policy if we're going to have policies.
So maybe something along the lines of in January and as it may come up unexpectedly throughout the year kind of a thing? Okay.
Mrs. Witt, can I make a request?
Certainly.
Would you state for Mrs. Julian to cut and paste exactly what you're asking? And
Yes.
that's important to me because if you were to just ask her, what do you recommend? Council's recommendation was what they presented you initially. The green is what the committee has put in.
Right.
So I think it's really important that we're very clear on what the board wants, and we want to make sure that we communicate that clearly.
Yes, I will do that. And I also would just like to remind the board, this policy has been trying to get going now for many months, and we do have to move our way through policy. And so at some point, we may need to make a vote and come back and do some cleanup work if we're going to continue to move through the policies and get them done. So
Would the board be interested in entertaining the policy without the green up there, knowing then that we're going to do the annual disclosure for the board members?
I think it's been a very long process, but it feels like the policy committee has put in some very clear, like, we're moving very quickly. Last month was, as we've started this new process, it was just last month, the first reading. I feel like they've done some great recommendations. We taking 3 months to pass a policy with discussion, to me, seems reasonable. And so I don't see any reason to rush it when it feels like we have clear steps to find the answer and then be able to bring it forward next board meeting, is my view.
if I could clarify, this is in the A policy group, and this, well, yes, we renewed the first reading at our last meeting. It was actually brought in the first time many months ago, and then stalled out as we were working through voting. And so ideally, we'd be able to move through policies based on kind of their category, the A's and the B's and the C's and the D's, and that's how we're trying to work through them. And so I just want to remind everyone, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't take this back to legal and get clarification on those issues. I just want to remind everyone that at some point, we are going to have to potentially pass a slightly less than meticulously perfect policy in order to move through the process.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully the next one will be
Let us
less controversial. So
Well,
let's try.
yeah, that wasn't controversy. That was discussion.
That
All
was
right.
discussion.
That was just
Basically-
discussion.
Yeah,
It's making our attorneys do their jobs.
okay,
Yeah.
fair
Yeah.
enough.
So basically, we are going to send both of these two amendments to the.
So what the outcome will be on this one is that no one made a motion to put this vote forward. They've given feedback on asked for a couple clarifying questions. So I will type that up into the notes that we have, and it'll get sent back to legal, and we'll take it again next month.
Okay.
We'll take it again in August.
In August, yes.
Okay, so is it okay, Board Chair, if we move on to policy C475?
I would love that.
Okay, we move on to C475. It is the recommendation of the policy committee to approve this policy as presented with no modifications.
Okay, is there any discussion regarding school-sponsored publications and productions? Okay, George?
No questions, just a comment. Just a small bit of ego. As a former journalist, I really appreciate the carve-out where you won't prohibit students from criticizing the government. That's much appreciated.
It's our pleasure.
I'm not going to editorialize. Okay, so hearing no discussion, is there a motion regarding C475?
I would like to submit a motion to approve C475.
Thank you. As presented, great. Is there a second, George? Awesome. We are going to write down, and I'm going to start. My vote is yes. George?
Yes.
Lawrence? Daisha? Rachel?
Yes.
Yue?
Yes, but there are some format issues and some extra space, those things, and before it's published, whatever need to be cleaned up.
Okay, we'll clean that up.
I think the spaces that she's referring to, it's fully justified, I believe, and that's what's caused some of that spacing,
Gotcha.
just, it's formatting.
Okay, other than that, though, what's your vote?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, great. That is 6-0 for C 475. Next, we have H200. Rachel, go ahead.
H200 is relations with special interest groups. Policy committee reviewed this one, and it's pretty brief and to the point, and we make the recommendation to pass it as written without any modifications.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion? George, second? Second to pass H200 as written? UA, do you have a vote?
Yes.
Okay, Rachel?
Yes?
Dacia? Yes. Lawrence? George?
Yes.
Amy says yes, that is 6-0. Look at us moving right along. All right, the final one for this evening is H250, and I don't have it open yet. So Rachel, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about that?
Sure, this is the school library material removal request procedure. This is one of our longer ones. We do have 3 recommended changes to this one. I'll cycle through those, and then I also would like to address a couple of the comments that we heard this morning or earlier in the meeting, the questions. I'm sorry, it's gonna be morning for me all day today. So starting here, first paragraph that I will draw your attention to is as you scroll down after the 2 Indiana Code citations, the requester should first discuss the item of concern with the school librarian. The only change to that is we've added a link to the removal request form. So specifically in the policy, there will be a live link so somebody does not have to go try and find the form. Moving on down to I've just noted that. We haven't done anything special with that. Moving down to policy committee proposed revision to paragraph 6. So this is where you'll see in blue, that was the text that was presented by one member as proposed language. We took the current text as well as the recommendation from a board member, and we tried to kind of condense those down into something that might fit and would still align with legal counsel's interpretation. And so what we as a policy are recommending is a request for removal of school library material will be reviewed with consideration for the specific school where the concern originated. The committee may determine whether the material should be removed from the individual school library. So this kind of directly addresses one of the questions that we heard at the beginning, but we didn't feel it was appropriate that the committee would make a decision on behalf of all schools. And it can be very subjective based on age of students and engagement in education. So that is the first of the changes to this policy. Do we want to go ahead and work on that one first? Or do you want
Sure.
to go ahead and go through? Are there any questions, I guess, about those changes?
Dacia?
So there's a typo, just whether the material, I just saw that typo. So the question is just understanding the process. If, let's say they decide that the book's inappropriate for the whole school district, that's a whole nother
So it would be
committee,
done
or
in a
what's that view? How would that
Right,
happen?
so the way, as we discussed this in policy committee, and the view is that the person would need to make that decision or make that request per school. And that would change the makeup of that committee, so the parents would be from that age of child, the people involved, not parents, excuse me, but the staff involved would be most informed and closest to the child in question in that age group. And so intentionally, we pulled district as a whole out, but a parent who wanted to make that, or a community member who wanted to make that request for the form, and the form does indicate the school and engagement on it, so. It just didn't feel good, for example, that a high school teacher or a high school librarian would be commenting on literature that was put forth for a 4th grader. That wasn't going to be the best decision necessarily.
Anything else? UA, do you have anything to say?
Yes, so the committee is mentioned multiple times in this document, but it was only defined later in the document. I think it would be helpful to define the committee, who will be the committee members the first time when the committee is mentioned. So otherwise people will be wondering, who will be the committee? Then later they read the clarification. I think, yeah, it should be defined at the first time when the committee shows up in the document.
So the way that, where it's placed in the document, because that is an interesting kind of view on it, but where it is placed in the document is in the order of the process, if that makes sense. So it's working from a process point of view. This is what the law says specifically. This is who may have a complaint about it. This is how they should bring their complaint forward. And so then the committee actually is fairly late in the process, which I think is why the definition of that was a little later in the policy. The hope is that I would just say, I understand your point. I agree with maybe the desire to rearrange things, but for me, all of the content is there, and I can also understand the placement where it is, so I would be inclined to leave it myself. Obviously, we did leave it, so. But I mean, I agree, it could be shifted around in numerous different places inside this policy.
Okay, do you want to carry on and talk about the blue before we go to
Well, so the
voting?
blue, the green and red is the redistribution of the blue. So the blue would not be, so somebody at this point would make a motion for either the green text or the blue text. They would make a motion for one of those to be voted upon.
I see, okay. Do we want to do that first, or do we want to go on to 9 and 10?
Style choice, up to you.
Let's go ahead and talk about 9 and 10 and give people a chance to think.
Okay.
Okay.
So in looking at 9 and 10, and this again touches on one of the comments made at the start of our meeting today, but how can we limit, how can we limit abuse of this, if that makes sense? So this one in particular, if the requester, this is proposal from the policy committee, and what we did is combined 2 paragraphs because it felt a little bit clumsy and redundant. But it reads, our recommendation is, if the requester is not satisfied with the recommendation of the committee, in other words, if the committee didn't find in their favor, right, and they were not happy with the explanation given, a written appeal may be made within 10 school days to the Board of School Trustees. The appeal should be sent to the superintendent. The board will make its decision based on the recommendation of the committee and the appeal documentation, if made, at the next regular meeting of the board. And that aligns with the question, again, at the beginning, about how to make it public. If the actual rationale needs to be published online, we, in reviewing this, felt that it was really appropriate to have the discussion happen in a public meeting. And so it would be, by the state's definition, it would be either a regular meeting or a work session. And then that conversation could be had in public, and the community would be available to comment on it. That felt like a healthier dynamic than read about it on the internet and decide if you're happy or not. And so that was kind of where we placed that thing, is to make it a little bit more live. In this, I'll also touch on the makeup of the committee. In particular, there was, because we had a pretty hearty conversation about including students and or parents in this particular committee, but we did feel, first of all, the language says very clearly that it will include at a minimum these people. The superintendent has discretion if he wants to add a student or a parent or a specialist in the community, for example, if it were something that dealt with certain topics, they might draw in a mental health professional, right? So in other words, we're kind of asking our superintendent to make a great decision about who should be on that committee. But so that's why it says at a minimum. And there is concern, I think, a decision to include a student on that in particular should be handled very cautiously, because it is quite likely that there will be strong feelings about a decision, pro and or con, and we would not want to intentionally put a student into an inflammatory situation. And so that's a piece of it. Along those lines, we also, we had a lot of conversation in policy committee about what that means, obscene content. And the point that I made to the committee, and I'll repeat here tonight, there are very few examples in history where somebody's done horrible things to a section of society or a human being, and it has not been indecent and sexual and abusive and violent. You can pick any, I mean, you could literally eliminate all of United States and world history if you just said it can't be obscene by this definition of obscene by the state. And so I do feel like it's very important that these discussions be had with also our goal of raising globally aware citizens, right? And citizens who understand real history and are doing so in the context of their school as opposed to Reddit or any other such thing. So I think that I would just, that was a conversation that just was had that I would want to share with you tonight, that really the desire and the way that we made the edits on this was to really place control into our superintendent's hands and into our educators' hands, but also still respecting the law that says we need to follow along with this law. And addressing the other concern that I haven't touched on yet, with regard to what is an extenuating circumstance, that's down at the bottom of this policy. The discussion that we had among that, it would probably be truly a changing of knowledge as we know it. It would be a matter of, hey, leeches work, so we should write about leeches. And then, 100 years later, maybe we shouldn't put leeches on people. So it would be a change in what we know to be true and accurate information that would qualify as an extenuating circumstance. Or it would be a significant change in the community, perhaps the demographic of the community, or in the leadership of the school corporation or a staff member. If somebody came in and said, hey, I really feel strongly about this, I want to revisit this again. Because what we know can change. And so we wanted to leave that extenuating circumstance in there. And then finally, the one other recommendation, I would love it if we could say we would limit each person to one request at a time, but I don't think that's in line with state law. I think that we felt hesitant about that from a legal standpoint, putting any further limitation on it than we did. If you'll note, there was one limitation that we did put in that we had a lot of conversation about and legal recommended to us, which is A, first talk to the school librarian, and then B, I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought on just a second. B, to put the request in, but they can make a request one time. They can't request the book year after year after year after year. Some of these books and some of these resources are quite long, and it'd be a very labor-intensive process to review it year after year. War and Peace would be a full-time job for a whole group of people to get through. So
I didn't get it through at the one time I was supposed to.
So anyway, that's a lot. That's a lot. We've kind of gone out of order, but if anybody has any questions, I'm sure Lawrence and I, this was probably the most discussed policy that we had in our prep meeting. And so if any other things you feel like we've missed or you see, let me know.
You didn't miss anything, just some context. That definition of obscene matter performance, unfortunately, that's almost verbatim language from a Supreme Court case from the 50s. And that definition hasn't changed as far as I know. And I think what the justice was trying to get at the time was that it's going to be different depending on where you are and who you're talking to. So the great quote from that case was, I don't always know what it is, but I know it when I see it.
Great.
And so our standards here of obscene may be different even than standards of obscene over in Benton or Fountain County. And that's okay.
Well, if we want to talk about any war at any time, we want to talk about Black history in America, if we want to talk about the Holocaust, any of those things are atrocities against human that could be labeled as obscene.
Yeah, and that's hopefully why this policy will give learned people and people in the community the opportunity to say no.
Yes, I agree. And that was really the focus, I think, and Lawrence can weigh in on this, but I think we were trying to comply with the law, give a reasonable framework. in which our school leadership and our educators and our community could voice opinions and have a respectful dialogue and make the best decision for kids. We tried to not put any more words in this thing than was necessary.
Daisha?
I really appreciated the comments from the community member, and I would like to see the committee adjusted in our policy. I think we have a very active community and parents who like to be involved, and I think should be allowed to be involved and not just be at the discretion of an administrator. So I think that we should add to it that a parent should be on the committee so that it's not just, you know, school administrators making this decision. And then I actually really liked his point of bringing a student in, and I think we need to clarify in it, if it's at the high school level, bring a high school student in. I personally don't think that an elementary school or a middle school student needs to be on it, is my view. But I really think that this generation of high school students, they see and view and experience the world very different than our generation. And I find a lot of value in having them give input. And I think that a student that wouldn't be comfortable with some of the controversy and other things wouldn't choose to serve on the committee. But we have some very active students. And so I think that it would make this policy be a true representation of what our community desires if we put a parent on every committee, and when it's at the high school level, put a student on that. And so I would like to see that changed. I can make a motion, we can send it back. And then the other one that really resonated with me was publishing the rationale online. What it's saying is when we're ready to make, the board's ready to vote on it, we're taking the recommendation from the committee, possibly the appeal, and we're going to vote on it. It would be very nice if that rationale was in the board packet so that the community could come forward and know what we're even trying to vote on, instead of waiting till the meeting, hearing the conversation, and then being like, well, we all disagree with that. And so I feel like if we want to hear from our community, number one, putting it online gives them that rationale, and number two, gives us an opportunity to hear from the community before we're asked to vote. So both of those suggestions really rung true. I thought the other ones were valid concerns. For me personally, I don't know if they're super important at this point, that maybe better ones if we see an issue, possibly adjusting the policy, me personally. The first two, to me, I would like to see added, and am happy to make a motion or recommend this go back to committee and talk about it. I don't know what the best way to handle that is.
Rachel?
I would like to address the point of the information in the board packet. All of our documents are in the board packet, so that's a given. That's not something we need to make a special vote on. If we have documents in our packet, they're all out there. So that's just how we do it. So there isn't any need for that. I interpreted the feedback to be, I'd like to have them be published like as a separate thing on the website, and I don't really see that as necessary. The board packet would be released as usual, and we would have that discussion. So it's kind of asking for something we already mandate. So here I want to just communicate with you all the timeline. If we are able to pass this bill or pass this policy tonight, it will be in place prior to, sorry, it's been ISBA week. If we are able to pass this tonight, then it could be in place at the start of our school year, which I think is a very important timeline. If we are not able to do that, we're not going to meet until August the 4th. We're talking about 3 days or 4 days before school starts. I would ask the board to consider paragraph by paragraph with the vote. And then if it doesn't fly, we can take it back. But it'd be awfully nice to pass this one tonight and let our superintendent do his job.
Daisha?
Well, then I'm happy to just make a motion and have it all resolved tonight, because I do think that there's not a lot of new information on adding that to the
I
committee.
think we have
So-
further comments first.
So yeah, I'm
George?
just sharing that whenever you
Okay.
want that procedure. And the second one about the packet, that clarification and viewpoint, that the committee will be sharing the documentation with the board in the packet that the community sees, I think addresses that one. So I just
Okay.
want to clarify that.
George?
You know, I appreciate the sentiment of wanting to have a student and a parent involved on these committees, and hopefully these committees don't come up very often, but I'd actually caution against putting a student and a parent on the committee, because Then the question has become, how do we choose the student and the parent? Does the parent or the patron who filled out the form feel like they deserve to be on the committee to make sure that their vote goes the way they want it? And then do we also, I respect our high school students, they're young adults and they're going to shape our future, but do we really want to, even if we select them at random, put a 15-year-old on this panel and have them take the heat potentially for the entire school for voting to keep or ban something that everybody else liked or didn't like? I don't know that I want to put any student in that kind of position.
Any other discussion before Lawrence?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with Deja. Basically, I think this very likely in the scenario is kind of parents submit something, want to remove the books. If we include the parents into this committee, this kind of we can, we make a collective decisions regarding this issue, so they will feel more be included process. And regarding the students, I think maybe senior, junior students, if they can join the committee, that's maybe we can have some insight from them. At least, the whole purpose of our education is so the students, and we want to hear what they say. And yeah, I think it's quite a difference because generation to generation. So I think that's a pretty that makes sense to me. And regarding tonight's decisions, there's several paragraphs. Maybe we can pass some of them, and then we don't. I understand we want to finish this sooner the better, but we want to make high quality decisions. We don't need to rush, if we are not ready yet. So I think regarding these committees, maybe we can talk about that back to the committee. And the rest of the three, the green one and the blue one, green one, maybe we can vote on that for this meeting, so we can partially finish part of this, and then we work on something else. And next meeting we can, these kind of things. That's my my approach to these policy things. Thank you.
Thank you. Yue, what have you got to say?
Are you calling me?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, thanks. I also agree. I think it would be helpful to have a parent representative to serve on the committee. Maybe, for example, a parent council president who is typically elected, right? Or I don't know. But anyway, that's a parent council leader. And I think either that person or that person can appoint somebody to serve on this committee. That's my first suggestion. Then my second one is I wonder whether that decision will be binary, removal or keeping, or what will be the result of the review? Let's say if people universally say, oh, let's remove it or let's keep it, that's a simple decision. What if people have disagreement? Like half of people think we should keep, the other half think we should remove it because it's a controversial book or something. I wonder how we deal with that situation. And do we want to keep some thing in the middle? For example, I remember my younger daughter once bring back home a slip saying, oh, if she wants to check out this book, she needed parent signature. A kind of the book with a parent's permission. I feel that that can be an option too. So it's in the middle, not removal completely, not keeping completely, but with some caution, because people may have different parenting styles, beliefs, and should we give parents more choices? And so if they feel, oh, I'm okay for my kids to read this book, then their kids can read the book. If they feel, no, I don't want my kids to read this book for whatever reason, religious or whatever, I think it'd be good to honor the parents' choice in that case. And so just to give them a little bit more option there. That's
Well, we're not
my two
removing that
cents.
option.
One is how parents to serve on the committee. Second is, should we have another option besides removal and keeping the binary decision?
Okay,
I
thank
don't
you.
know what the law says, but it's practically, I feel that can be an option.
Rachel?
So first, I want to make it clear, this does not include classroom libraries. So this does not include that. This includes media centers in our schools. And it does not include curriculum, as I understand it. It's truly what is in the library. And I would say that if a parent felt strongly about their child reading a particular book that had somehow been restricted, that they could go to the public library and get that book for them, and or purchase that book or otherwise make it accessible to their child. The reality is that, you know, I'm about to age myself terribly, but when I was a young girl, preteen, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret was like the big book that nobody's parents wanted to let them read. And so, of course, there was one copy that traveled around every girl in the group. So I think that the idea that kids aren't going to hand books over to one another is, I mean, they're going to do that. But I would recommend, you know, based on this, I like Lawrence's idea of perhaps approving what we can approve tonight, if we can agree on certain changes, or I would suggest that we do take this back to legal to ask for a clarifying point on the committee. The policy given to us by legal did not include parents and students specifically. I think we don't have real agreement, as it sounds right now, on whether or not parents and students should be included on that. I just want to point out to everyone that it is must include. Superintendent builds the team and it must include these people. It's not restricting anyone. He could call anyone and ask them to be on the committee, and he could call anyone to ask them to be on any given committee based upon the book, the age of student, the school, the administrative opinions, anything along those lines. Hopefully he picks an odd number of people should there be a disagreement.
I have a couple of thoughts. First, this policy is not addressing what parents can let their own children read. It's addressing what individuals believe other people's children should have access to. And as such, if a community member is coming to the high school library and saying, no child should have access to this book, it is obscene, and it should not be accessible to any children in this building, then it doesn't make any sense at all to have a child on that committee, right? If we're reading something that's so prurient and obscene that it's dangerous to children, why would we put a child on that committee? That just doesn't make logical sense to me. And second, when this issue of having parents versus teachers and so on has come up before, we've pointed out that most or many of our teachers are also parents, and they're parents of students in our district. Most of our administrators, if not all, are also parents and parents of students in this district or recent graduates. So almost definitionally, if there are parents or if there are teachers on the committee, they are also parents and understand from that point of view. But I do agree with you, Rachel, that we shall bounce this one back to legal with those questions. Would we like to go ahead and vote on paragraph 6? Do we have enough agreement on that we think we could get somewhere, or shall we just, maybe there would be a motion?
I think these two pair, one is blue, one is green. What do you think? I mean, maybe we can consolidate it into one paragraph and then we vote, or
So they're
what?
the same paragraph, but with edits.
It's an
So the
either or.
policy,
So
when we met in policy committee, we agreed to put forth the green with the red strikeouts.
Yeah.
But I wanted to honor the member who put forward the blue text, and so we left it in there and.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I truly understand, appreciate that. But I mean, probably we consolidate them one proposal, one motion, and then vote,
Or we could maybe propose to vote to approve the green text, since you're on the policy committee.
And then
And
if not
presumably you've already
working-
gone over it, and then we could vote on whether or not the green text is what we want to stick with, and, or someone could propose through a motion to approve the blue text, and we
Yeah.
could vote on that, and whether or not that should stay. Maybe a motion?
Yeah, let's do the green one, then blue one.
Okay, so you're moving that we should retain the green text and not the blue text for paragraph 6? Is that what I'm understanding?
And then that will be for the blue, the proposal of the blue text, probably if we pass the green one, there's no opportunities for us to vote on that. You see what I mean?
Right, so would you rather
So-
propose that we accept the blue text? By a motion, since we can't do an either or vote?
Maybe you can vote both of them? No?
No,
But
it's an either
Yeah,
or,
that's
it's
what I-
apples or
They,
oranges.
they say two different things, so.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Probably we need to decide whether or not include the whole district or maybe just school. I mean, that's probably the
That's the
major, yeah,
difference,
that's
so
the
we
major
can't vote.
thing.
So perhaps there's a motion from
Could I
Rachel?
move- Could I move that we accept the paragraph 6, proposed language in green with red strikeouts?
So that would be the policy committee proposed language.
That is correct.
Thank you. Is there a second to that? George, thank you. All right, we're going to do a voice vote again to retain the green text for paragraph 6, which would definitionally mean the blue text would not be retained. Does everybody understand? Okay, UA? Is that a yes? Sorry, I can't hear you. Yes?
Can't hear you.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Daisha?
Yes.
Lawrence?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
And Amy is yes. So the green language stays 6-0, which means that the blue language, which is the second line on the agenda, goes. And then do we want to try to attack 9 and 10, or shall we just bounce that back?
I think 9 and 10 should be okay. My opinion is okay.
Yeah,
But-
9 and 10 don't seem to be a subject of much conversation
Okay.
today. I think, and I just want to clarify with everyone to make sure that I have the notes correct. But what we're going to do is go back to legal and just ask the question about parents and students being added to the committee. Was there anything else in particular that we were going to include for questions on the balance?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. I'd
Okay.
like to make a motion that we accept the revised policy committee proposed revision to paragraphs 9 and 10 in green on the draft policy.
Great. Is there a second? Lawrence, super. Okay, a voice vote again to switch to the green for paragraphs 9 and 10. UA? Is that a yes?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Rachel?
Yes.
Daisha? Lawrence? George?
Yes.
And Amy's a yes, so that's 6-0 as well.
Okay. We're not gonna vote on the policy overall. We're gonna take it back for that last question.
Okay, correct.
Is the question, can parents be on there?
We're gonna ask legal their recommendation on parents and students and if they have any other knowledge or experience about.
So
How
they're
that
going
is
to
worked.
recommend what they have in writing. So I think really the board's going to need to decide if we find that they can do it.
Right.
I don't,
I think I would just like to bounce it back to legal would have. a
I'm
little
good
more-
with that, but I just want to make clear to you that they're going to ask, they're going to say that's the board's choice on what.
Right.
If they can, they'll tell you whether or not they can. They're not going to tell you
What we
they.
should do.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll probably see that again in August is what I'm thinking. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, that happened. So next, we're going to be talking about the first reading for A200, which is firearms, weapons, and destructive devices. Policy A225 is reporting of suspected child abuse and neglect. A285, which is no distracted driving. B100, which is board authority and philosophy, and B125, which is duties of the school board. Those are all available online for first reading, and Rachel has information.
Well, I just wanted to kind of explain to everyone, the numbers might seem to be a little bit out of alignment. What we asked Amy to do, if you'll recall, last meeting was to release A, B, and I think C policies. And then we went through and tried to capture all others, or all that were in those queues. So we've skipped around a little bit. And so that's why you're seeing some from A and some from B. We're trying to sweep back and get everything and move them through and get caught up. So once we get through these, I believe this will be the last of the A's anyway that we have wrapped up and finished. So now this, I want to point out to everybody, if we bring back 2 policies that we had up for second reading next month, and then we have an additional 5 policies, we're looking at working through 7 in our next meeting in August. So
So maybe bring a lunch.
do your homework. Be ready to go.
And
I asked, could we take ones that need a bunch of discussion and just take it to the work session so that the whole community's not having to sit through? I think most of us, we didn't have questions on several of these policies. So to me, they were ready to come up for a vote. We do it during regular meeting. But these couple where there's still a lot of understanding, questions, if that happened in a work session, then when they're ready for a vote, then we put it on the agenda. And I feel like we're just a little bit more sensitive to, it's the same amount of time for us, but community members who are coming to see what we vote on, it will make these regular meetings a little bit shorter. It's just one idea.
Rachel?
So my difficulty with that is a lot of our conversation, particularly about the library material meeting, happened because of someone coming up and speaking at the start of our meeting today. And so I don't really care I don't think that it makes much difference if it's in the work session or in the regular meeting. I don't care if it happens in either place, but the intent is to format these so that we could vote paragraph by paragraph and work through it. We are going to have this situation come up where, we have things we don't expect. So,
Right.
but I wouldn't want to say, oh, sorry, you came to our regular meeting to speak and we already talked about it in our work session. So that doesn't make much sense to me either.
Thanks. Lawrence?
Yeah, I think, Daisha and Rachel, I think my opinion is if we have some working sessions, because we will spend more time working on the policies and a lot of details back for things. I think the working session from 5 o'clock will be better for us, so we can get a lot of things discussed. And when we have the regular meetings, we will just go fast. And those admin people stay here. I want them to go back home early. I used to work for a company, and then the whole day is really long day from 7, 8 o'clock until afternoon time is very
Yes,
tired.
it is.
Also, you have some work. In your home, you have some commitments in the home, take care of family, everything. So I think we start 5 and then we can maybe finish that soon. Yeah.
Well, do you have a date set for the next policy committee meeting? When is that?
Yeah, we're working on that. We still we try to narrow down one day, but we were still waiting for
So we're close.
David's
David to come back.
Yeah, his availability. I think he's out of the country. So
He is, yes.
In Lawrence's
Okay.
defense, he had a great date planned and I had a meeting come up in
Aw.
conflict. So we're on round 2 of scheduling at this point.
That's okay. I understand that. So that's-
Mid-July.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
But assuming that someone had a comment about one of the 5 I just mentioned, or the 2 that we pushed,
Yeah.
they could email the board, and we could receive those comments, or a board member could email the whole board before your policy committee
That's right. We
meeting.
can discuss. Yeah.
And that would maybe be more expedient, because then it's all in writing and it's clear and everyone has time to think about it.
That would be very helpful. The feedback that we got early this time, really,
that's
we were
right.
able to have conversation about.
That's right.
Okay, super. Hi.
Hi.
It's George.
Maybe jumping the gun, but just for your awareness, I'm skimming through the first read policies now. A285 needs to be rewritten slightly, because right now, unless I'm losing my mind, it looks like it only prohibits distracted driving while you're driving a school vehicle on school property.
You're welcome to be distracted anywhere else.
Your own car.
Yeah, if you're in your own car on school property, then it's fine.
Yeah, that's.
I think that's an important distinction.
This is the reason for the first readings, really, to put them out there and get all this stuff, it's everybody should please read them.
Yep. Will do. Okay, I am in the wrong meeting. Okay, there we go. I got into May somehow. All right, next item that we are talking about is the transfer policy discussion, and this is kind of a large one. There has been a change in the law, and our current agreement with TSC doesn't necessarily align with the change in the law. And so we're at kind of a crossroads where we need to decide what we are going to do regarding transfer students. So of course, we are going to continue to welcome the children of our staff and teachers. That's never going to change. But we have 160 students from TSC who have transferred in. And our choices are we going to continue to welcome those transfer students and also transfer students from other districts, or are we going to not welcome any transfer students, which of course is we know.
That's not real,
No,
actually
I'm
completely
sorry.
accurate. Yeah,
I'm so
The
tired.
question is, do we want to continue with the current practice, knowing that we now cannot collect additional dollars?
yeah. Or,
Or do we want to open in that situation, those students are on TSC's ADM, and the decision begins with TSC.
right,
And so do we want to continue that practice, or do we want to consider opening the district and the decision is with this board regarding what is put in place with regard to policy, because now you can't collect the difference anyway. And so if you do that, it'll be through a lottery system. We would set the numbers to ensure that we're in a common practice of keeping consistent class sizes and also keeping at the capacity of our buildings where we're maximizing dollars versus being efficient.
right. Thank you.
So it wasn't,
It's much clearer.
yeah, it's not, are we going to stop taking transfers? Or are we going to continue with the current practice and not collect dollars, additional dollars? Or are we going to put the power in the board's hands through being an open district and still maintaining class sizes that the board, which is represented by the community, expects?
Right. Thank you. That was much clearer than my words. And item number 21 in the policy, or in the board packet, includes the two different policy possibilities and how those would look depending on which direction we go. And so basically, we brought this for info only so that we can let you all know that you have an opportunity to speak about it, and also so the community can take a look at those two items and share their thoughts with us. So, George?
So, Dr. Griner, you just explained we can no longer charge the difference in tuition, but under your team's understanding of the law, does any funding at all now follow students who transfer into this district?
The funding of the child, the ADM funding, would follow the child. So instead of us charging TSC for the dollars and them having them on their ADM, they would come directly to our district, and then we would collect the funds directly as a student, which is typical of a school that is an open district and accepts transfers. So the funding would, the ADM funding would, the basic grant funds would follow the child, and the grants related to special education, CTE, and so forth.
Rachel?
What does the administrative burden for that look like? Does that change what you have to do in the office to make it work?
It would change it. It would be that we're enrolling the students in the way that we enroll them now. So it would literally just be taking out TSC superintendent making the decision first of whether or not that transfer is coming to our desk.
So it's easier.
I would say it's easier.
Yeah. Okay.
But I want the board to have this dialogue. Yes, it's easier.
Daisha?
I think this topic is a topic that our community is very passionate about on both sides. I think there's a lot of information that has changed because in the past, when we talked about transfer students coming in, they were bringing referendum dollars that, they were bringing some money with them. Now they're coming in and people who live in the district are paying the referendum, but others are not. Yet there's advantages to bringing them in if we have empty seats. I think to me, this is I personally think before we vote as a board or honestly have much discussion, I think we want to give the community an opportunity to be well-informed by our administrators and have them share why this is an advantage to what's the pros and cons and just the straight dollars. What is it going to look like for classes, workload, everything? Have it a town hall so that the community can just dump information on us. And then we have a work session discussion, and then we vote on it. To me, before we kind of get and start making decisions, I think it's important for the community to share with us as much as they can, because this is something that's been talked about forever. And I think the community should be able to share their input with us.
Okay,
Yeah.
noted. Yue, did you have something?
Yes, I think we should be super cautious. And I expressed my concern a couple of times while email regarding the transfer issue. And our enrollment ADT is getting low, especially the residents the students within the district actually are getting lower and lower every year. And so, but on the other hand, if you look at Zillow, there's so many houses within our district that are on sale. And now with the SK coming in, and it brings a lot of uncertainty. And they say, oh, there's no health concern, but many people, as you can tell, do have a lot of concerns about the implication of having the chip company come in, and basically super close to our district. And so if we leave our district open, I'm worried that people will move out of the district, and especially if they can still easily come back to the district, then that means the property value will decrease. And that means we'll have less students within the district, and also the tax will lower eventually if the property value dropped, right? Another thing is in the long run, and if this situation continue, I wonder how can we get another referendum in 7 years also. And I feel there will be a lot of implications for this decision. We need to be super cautious because it's not just one decision, there will be a chain effect. And we needed to be super, super cautious. I'm worried, really worried that people will move out and then they just drive their kids into our district and live far away in LSC, TSC, and as farther as possible from the factory. I don't know about the really, I'm not expert. Yeah, they promise there's no much negative impact on the residential area, but I don't know, but I'm really kind of worried. Yeah, with the two factors, the factory moving, then open district, people will flee. Then the price of the house drop, tax will drop. We won't get another referendum. That can be horrible if that's the case. I don't know. I cannot predict the future, but I'm just worried in general.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with you. It does definitely have implications. I think we also have to recognize that there's a natural capacity of our schools. And I think we need to understand the timing of this a little bit more. I'm hoping Dr. Greiner can talk about the timing. And I also, I would just like a very clear answer. If we close our district and we say no transfers, by my math, we'll be riffing teachers. Is that an accurate statement, Dr.
That
Harper?
is accurate. So we've actually had this dialogue multiple times in our office because really you could right size. In other words, close the district and right size. And if you close the district and right size, it is cutting not just teachers, but it's cutting at every level. And even Mrs. Mumford and I have had that dialogue before, that it's not just teachers, it's support staff, cooks, administration. It's literally right sizing across the district. And you could do that, or you could run another referendum like Dr. Yin just shared. And you could run not at capacity, but under capacity and make it up through additional referendum dollars. Or you could keep it the way it is, which is the relationship we have with TSC. This is why I would say the relationship we have with TSC, or open the district and not increase, but keep in other words, keep at the capacity that we're at. So the dialogue from our perspective, just so you know, is not, we just wanted the board to understand we're not collecting additional dollars. And so there's no benefit one way or the other as to whether or not we're taking those 160 students and putting them, or whatever it is, depending on where enrollment goes, and putting them in our ADM, or if we're keeping them the way it is now on TSC's ADM and billing them. That's why I asked Amy to be clear that our administration is not suggesting you discontinue the relationship we have with TSC and remain closed. That's not the question. Was, is this the time for the board, while they're adopting policy, is this the time for the board to determine which route to go? And that's why if there were community forums and so forth, it would probably be wise to be led by the president with the superintendent and his team alongside you. But we're not recommending that you change something. We're recommending that you guys have an opportunity to have dialogue on which direction of those 160 or 180 next year, whether it's TSC and us, wherever kindergarten's going, on which way you choose as a board to go. I feel like we'd be very negligent if our suggestion to you were to just take it away. Now, let me explain why I feel that way. Because there's also a point where programming, when you offer programming at the high school, the number of students matter, so that you've got the number of students to go the different directions in your arts, in your not competitive, leveled math, or math that is advanced to meet the needs of students. You start getting in we're at a right size for that. You get below 2,000, now you could be looking at, are you offering certain courses every other year versus every year like we're able to do now? And that's where the challenge could lead to people fleeing, like Dr. Yin discussed. If we don't have the programming, then the benefit of what we recognize here with the competitiveness of students, and I don't mean a negative competitiveness, I mean healthy competitiveness, with our students, their classmates, challenging each other through good dialogue. Why would you not go to a district that offers those courses that we're not offering, or we're offering every other year? So that's something that I think the dialogue is important among the board to understand. I think those were my main points.
What does the 25-26 school year look like? Are
We-
we going to lose the referendum add-on?
Say that, ask it differently.
So what's the impact on the next
Oh.
school year?
Okay, yeah, we will lose next year. We won't be charging for those incoming students.
So we're losing the referendum already
Yes.
next year. Okay.
Yes.
Now, to address Dr. Yin's concern, correct me if I'm wrong, but no matter how we decide to do it, living in the district still guarantees admission, and living outside doesn't.
That's the other point. When I said I couldn't remember, I'm so glad you asked that question, Mr. Lyle. The other point I wanted to make is when we weren't charging, it was pretty safe to live outside the district because not everyone's going to pay that difference, and you see that. If we open up or the same thing may happen. If this is why it's okay. I'm going to say this. So regardless of where you go, sticking with the TSC making the initial decision versus opening the district, now that we're not charging a difference, I think that you're going to, as a parent, I would see more students probably coming in, and there's going to be a cutoff where there's not room for you. And so I've lost my guarantee to get in. And as a parent, I knew where I wanted my children, one, and two, I wanted to know that I was guaranteed they would be here. And so I think you'll see more competitiveness regardless because there's not that additional fee, which leaves it to not every family. Does that make sense? It levels the playing field.
Less capacity, so it's a more competitive environment to get in.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yes.
Does anyone else have any initial thoughts? Daisha?
Can we schedule, I think this is a very pressing issue with us already losing the funding, that the sooner we get decisions made, the better. So I would like to ask that we schedule a town hall and start getting encouraging input from the community so that we can move forward as quickly as possible to make these decisions, because families and kids and teachers, a lot of people are affected by this.
Rachel?
Yeah, along those lines, I've got this question. The reality is that with this change, the 2025 school year, the funding is just dropping. We're going to be at capacity, but we're going to be at capacity with TSC students only. But either way, we're losing the referendum dollars, the difference. Is that a true statement? Because really, it
That is
doesn't.
a true statement because you can no longer charge additional dollars. So it's truly just the AM dollars. So that is a true statement.
Okay, so this school year, we already have our TSC transfers in place. We're already going to go ahead with them. This doesn't impact anything realistically until the 26-27 school year. So we need to have a thoughtful conversation with our community sometime during this school year, is how I understand the timing, because we're not going to get halfway through the year and say, hey, TSC kids, you're out of here. We're going to open the lottery mid-year. We're not going to do that.
Well, that wouldn't happen regardless. So I think you're trying to say, is it time sensitive this year? It's not time sensitive for this year because those students have been accepted. Now, where it could change, where Mrs. Mumford makes a point, is if we went and opened the district and there was still capacity and we could accept a few more students, it could impact positively the greater Lafayette community.
Well, and I would imagine too that if the housing market is tight in West Lafayette, so giving people the opportunity to have time to purchase if they wanted to do that and get into district.
And as far as this, yes. And as far as the students, the TSC students, those students nothing changes for them. It's just that incoming students, is it open to TSC only, or is it through the TSC administration making initial decisions, or is it open to surrounding areas, which could prompt the need for a lottery, which could lead to a bigger question of the parent living outside of the district? Oh my gosh, am I going to get in?
And once,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yours meeting, sorry.
once a student is in, though, we're not going to, are they going to lottery every year, or are they only going to lottery the years when we're at capacity?
No, the policy, well, yes, they're going to lottery every year. They're not going to lottery our students. And once our students are in, our students are in.
Right. So if a student lives outside a district and they lottery in kindergarten,
They're in.
they're in.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the same rules apply that apply today regarding discipline and attendance. And that's important because if the family is unable to get the student to school. We have to think what's best for the student. And while the family would like to see them here, if they're unable to get them here, then attendance becomes a reason that the next year you would deny it. But there would be no reason to deny a student that doesn't have attendance issues and or suspended 10 times or more.
Okay. Tasha?
May I say something?
So to me, oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Thanks.
I'm not sure, I forgot whether I emailed the whole board or just Sean before regarding the international students option, and if we can resume the old policy we had for international students, and basically we take international student, charge them high price, for example, 20,000 per year. And given how high our school is ranked in the nation, we pretty much right now is 200 or something in that whole nation. It's a really a marketable, very marketable school for international students. You know, in our town, and several private schools take international students, charge them high price. If we can do the same, we can solve the financial problem without, you know, take whoever transfer in. Just, I feel that way, if we can fill our spot, and then people will want to live in our district to have a guaranteed spots in our schools. And I wonder whether it's still an option, and whether there's any legal constraint or whatever for public school. But I feel that can be an option if we think out of box, given how well our school is ranked and how international we are already. And so frequently we have visiting scholars, kids who attend our schools but couldn't finish it before they go back to their home country. And if we give them option to continue to graduate from our school, and they can do homestay with the residents in our area, and then you know, people will be motivated to live in our district for various reasons, either send their kids to schools or be a hosting family for international students. I don't know, I'm just, you know,
yeah.
brainstorming and out of box through the low ADM problem.
And opening the district back up to international students that were interested is not something that we would discourage looking at again if the board wanted to look at that. It would require having personnel trained and available to address the paperwork, because there's a lot of paperwork to it. But it would not, I can't see 160 students each year finding a place to live in a parent's home that is wanting to or willing to host that. So I would see that as, if the board decided they wanted to do that as a richer environment for the students we were hosting and the families, students that are in our district today, I think that would be a good reason. It wouldn't be a reason to say that we were or weren't accepting transfers. And that's why I wanted to be clear that we have a system that's working. We're taking about 160 students a year, and we've been doing that. And it's not doing anything except addressing, keeping us at close to capacity so that we're maximizing the dollars and having the opportunity for the programming that we are able to offer. The question really is, do we do it the way we're doing it, or do we switch and become an open district, which would allow even LSC to consider our district, which actually could make it more competitive, harder to get in, and the Greiner family would certainly be looking, we already had been for obvious reasons anyway, to find our home here, but without a doubt we would be if we thought there was a chance our kids couldn't have been here. Most people, or no, lots of people look at it the way our family did and want their children playing in the streets with students, classmates that are going to be going into the West Lafayette schools when school's in session, as opposed to going outside and not being connected, if that makes sense. And, or with two working families, enjoy the opportunity to benefit from the transportation So if you were to decide you wanted to go with the policy that opens the district, it doesn't change what we're doing. It just changes opportunity for families in some ways, and in other ways, it restricts the better chance that they'll have a seat. Does that make sense? Okay.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, if we're gonna go the international student route, which is something that we could consider fair ways down the road, because that's a lot of administrative burden that we would take on by doing that. We would also have to, at the same time, consider what kind of policy we'd write for that. Because if we want to turn it into a profit-making exercise, we could just devote all 160 of those slots to international students, make $6 million, and upset everyone in the state of Indiana. Or we could put a cap on it or not do it at all. So that is, I think that's a prime question we have to talk about before we make a decision engaging on that particular piece of business.
There are definitely more questions than answers. Yes, Stacia.
With the current situation and no decision being made yet, information to be shared and collected, is 160 our limit? With us now not getting referendum dollars, this is having an impact, more of a financial impact on our budget. And so if we were to let 200 students from TSC come in at this point, is there any limit to the number of transfer students until we make a decision on
No.
this bigger picture?
Great question. So we can accept more, and it's particularly, we've always been, since I've been here, I've been told at the I think it's a great question, Mrs. Mumford. I've been told by our high school administration and counselor that we don't want you to limit, because when we have more, it's the programming thing we talked about. And so the answer is no, there's not a limit. It really was more about us having on the ADM versus TSC having them on their ADM, and we billing them annually. There is not a limit
So that's
at this
my-
moment. The limit would be class size like we do now.
Well, that's my concern is before this moment, the limit was those that were willing to pay the price difference. Now that that has been taken out of the picture, if there's no limit, when we accept transfer students in the next year, we are committed to these students. And it doesn't matter what class size decisions, what programming, I mean, this is a big decision to me in this next year, because I agree that whoever we take, we're not kicking them back out.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to see us, until we make a decision, accepting a huge amount of transfer students.
I misunderstood your question.
If that makes sense.
It does. So our principals are very protective of the class sizes. And so right now they would tell us, there's been times where we just sent out our notices, and that's because Mrs. Julian was waiting on the principals to go through each student and look at class sizes. And this is something they do every year, and determine if the students could be accepted. That's what I meant by we can continue that process. That's what I meant. So I thought you were asking, are we stuck at the 160 this year as opposed to that we weren't in the past? No, nothing changes. Nothing changes with regard to our practice and the principles protecting class size and so forth. But if more students came to the high school, that doesn't change either. That the principal will entertain additional students.
So that's my question. Could we be coming to an August meeting and our transfer students are at 180 and 200, which to me, there is a line that it's definitely not the advantage to my high school student, because some of these classes are already large. So that's what my question is, as a board, not having a board meeting between now and August, kind of having TSC families have a little bit more free reign on our school district. Where is that boundary and limits that we can feel comfortable with until we?
Yeah,
Since we don't-
every year they could have done what you're asking. And so the boundary or limits would have been considering numbers. And I hear what you're saying. So it would still be administrators looking at class sizes and making a decision accordingly, like they've done.
I just mean it's going to be a different conversation now, because now, as long as they have transportation, it's easier to get in than it was before. There's not
More
limitations.
affordable, that's what you mean, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yes,
And so
that's
I
correct.
just am concerned that I don't want it just the floodgates, because we will pay the price with our students.
Absolutely.
Until this decision is being made. So I guess I'm asking, I would like to see not just open door policy with the TSC,
Right.
Because this does affect our funding, is what I'm sharing.
That's fair and makes sense. Thank you, Mrs. Mumford.
You know, and it's all up in the air too. Even, no matter what we decide, we can also could address that kind of concern.
I just mean, once we have the students come in, that's where it's out of our hands.
Yeah, I get that.
That's what I'm meaning.
Rachel?
It's on a little bit different topic, but do we feel, on the question of international students, do we feel comfortable that federal government's position on immigration is something we would want to make business decisions on right now?
We may want to hold off till 2029.
I just feel like that feels like I'm not opposed to international students, but I just feel like there's a lot of ambiguity in what's coming out right now, and I just would be concerned about really investing heavily in that as a strategy right now.
I will say too, as administration, it's not something we prioritize right now. But if the board said, look, we want that opportunity, we would entertain, we would make it a goal to review for the board if the board came to us and asked us to do that. That's not a priority for us right now because we do not in any way see that as the solution to being at capacity. We would see that more as an opportunity to have students from different nationalities, countries that are visiting to bring something enriching. So we would entertain, where Mr. Lyle is, it is a lot of paperwork, and we didn't feel like we had the expertise or capacity for one or two students. But if the board wanted us to entertain that and go through training and so forth and making sure that we had the staff available to do that, we would consider that, obviously, if the board's requesting that.
UA?
Thank you for the discussion. And so regarding the paperwork, I was an international student myself. I know that the process is really complicated. And I wonder, and just a brainstorm, I don't know whether it's possible at all. I wonder whether we can talk to Purdue to see whether we can partner with them. That way we don't need to have a full-time staff member who have that expertise to take care of one or two, several under 10 international students. If they have some expert who can, help us take care of those international students, we pay them a bit and something. And it's parity. Actually, many of the potential international students are maybe related to Purdue. And for example, one common phenomenon I observe is the case of the visiting scholars. And so if they can partner with them, and maybe that can solve that problem. I don't know, but I think it's worth trying and to see whether they are open to this. But I understand that right now under the current political environment there are a lot of uncertainties. But my observation is it will change over time, and so sooner or later, I think I believe the U.S. will be still open to immigration and immigrants, and because this is a country of immigrants, I won't believe it will stay like this forever. And so.
Okay, thanks. Lawrence, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding the international students, so basically we only keep them for 1 year because we are public schools, and they can get visa to come into the country, but they can stay in the public school for only 1 year. And then next year, after that, they have to find some private school or some other schools because that's the regulations. So basically, it's not really, we want the students to keep here longer time, not just 1 year. So probably that may not be the, priorities for us. But back to Deisha's suggestion, probably if we want to move that direction, either administration team or our school board, maybe we need a kind of a town house. We want to explain to them, to co-communities. We don't want to make people, surprised, because it seems to me we want to move that quickly, because the next year, from my understanding, we can only collect the ADM fund. So that's kind of something like $500,000, shortfalls. So compared with this year. So, I I think we want the whole community understand the sooner, I mean, it's better. And also maybe they have some other questions we didn't think about or solutions or whatever. We just want everybody on the same page, so we don't want them get surprised and then we just kind of end up with very difficult situation. So I'm thinking about that. So that's all. Thank you.
Great discussion. I appreciate everyone's thoughts, and we will discuss the option of a town hall and see what we can do. I hesitate to do that during the summer because a lot of people would not be available, including myself. So, no, I'm always available. All right, Dr. Greiner, how about a superintendent report? I know.
So I want to first of all commend our recent graduates. Another great graduation celebrating our 2025 graduates. I want to thank the board members that were able to attend. And I also want to thank our counseling team, our administrators, our staff, parents, and for their organization and their part in getting our seniors to graduation. When you think about that trek from beginning of life to walking across that stage, all that goes into it and all the support, it's a pretty special thing. And so I don't think we can take for granted all the love, support, organization that has gone into that by various stakeholders.
Don't make me cry.
Oh, don't cry. We are very proud of our seniors, and we're also grateful for the community support in educating our students, leading to this great celebration. I'd also like to talk a little about a couple of projects that are going on, capital improvements. Over the summer, we know the tennis courts, that renovation you can see, that's off to a great start. Contractors believe that we are on schedule. We're having bi-weekly meetings with the construction manager to receive updates, and the plan is to be done August 31st still, since we're on schedule. The track project is scheduled to begin June 12th at the complex. The plan is to be done by July 31st, and we're going to be having bi-weekly meetings with regard to that as well. Retirements, congratulations. I just wanted to extend congratulations to Kathy Wolf, Beth Scherer, and Jana Leisure. We heard about them from board members reading about them. I just wanted to say we truly appreciate their service to our students, our families, schools, and entire community over the years, and we most certainly wish them, each one of them, many happy and healthy retirement years ahead. Our SRO officer, Marcus Slifer, congratulations to him. Marcus has been selected to receive the Exceptional Service Award for Region 4 of the Indiana School Resource Officer Association. He's going to be recognized at the 2025 Indiana School Safety Conference on June 19th. And we're proud of him and appreciative of Marcus for his passionate contributions to our district. Mrs. Kronk, would you please report on accounts payable and fund reports?
Remember to turn on my microphone. Claims for the period of May 3rd through June 4th total $4,525,915, including regular corporation expenses and the Wabash Valley Education Center expenses. Of this amount, $2,663,268 were paid towards wages, salaries, and benefits. I provided the final fund report for April 2025 in your board packets. Total cash on hand in all funds was $29,129,746. The education fund had a cash balance of $7,298,786. Preliminary fund report for May has also been included in your board packets, but we've not yet finished entering receipts and reconciling that month. The cash flow, including the month of April, showing the flow of revenue and expenses during that month for the Education Referendum and Operations Fund is also included.
Great, thank you. As far as my committee report goes, the Cason Park opened on May 22nd, and I have not made it over there yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It sounds amazing. And the one thing that is most pursuant to us is that Purdue Research Foundation is donating the land across the street from the Wellness Center for the Early Childhood Education Center, which will be 10,000 square feet and have the potential to expand to up to 300 kids. So that was all part of the SK Hynix situation. So that's all I have for the good of the order. How about George?
I feel like my last few reports have been brutal and sad, so I'll keep this one short. The Indiana legislative session is mercifully over. The federal legislators are still debating the big beautiful bill, debatable on whether it's beautiful, but I'll leave that up to you all. The city council, as Amy mentioned, voted on the SK Hynix rezoning. They voted to accept the proposal. And so as a result of that, not only will SK Hynix be coming, but likely several other suppliers will be coming to fill in the other space on that land as well. So that early childhood center that PRF is donating will also be next to potentially several dozen businesses. And I'll also leave that to the community to decide whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Thank you. Lawrence? Nothing? Okay. Daisha? Rachel?
Notes from WLCF. Class reunion season has begun. The class of 1956 met over the weekend, and they're looking forward to 7 more classes between June and mid-October. The next issue of the Devil's Advocate alumni newsletter will mailed in July, so you can look for that one. They will once again assist with the school supply drive for students. Donations will be collected during the month of July. Boxes will be placed at the entrance of the junior, senior high school and the West Lafayette Public Library if you would like to donate to that. The backpack program to assist families who are food insecure is continuing over the summer. Great thanks to our off-duty school resource officers for delivering boxes of food throughout the summer. The backpack program is providing food to 14 families, which is twice as many as last year. From the ISBA, I just attended the quarterly meeting on Friday of the board. Region 4 Awards Committee, Lawrence applied and was accepted as the representative for Region 4. So congratulations, Lawrence, on that. Prepare yourself for a long Zoom call, sir. The other thing that was an interesting comment made is that participating in ISBA training functions, we really would hope that people would see this as the same as asking our teachers to participate in professional development. The ISBA is providing us professional development. And we would hopefully, as board members, model an openness and learning. And along those lines, I will point out the registration for the fall conference will open on June 23rd with a 2-week early bird pricing schedule. So Roberta will be getting that out to everyone. Also, just some updates from Indiana. The new public access counselor, Jennifer Ruby, has not been responsive to any inquiries for all of 2025 yet. So they're really not really sure what's happening there. The governor says she's working on backlog. So if anybody had any public access questions, I would suggest that we take those to our own legal counsel for advice at this time. There are 44 new laws, education-related laws, and the ISBA Legislative Action Report is out and gives you a recap of all 44 of those and their impact. Indiana Public Schools were recently ranked 6th in the nation. There's a nice article that came out, Our Public Schools at Work, and that should be in everybody's email. There is an opportunity on June 23rd at 10 a.m., and I will forward along the link and registration for that and the PowerPoint, but that virtual live chat with the ISBA is going to be all about the new A to F rework. So if there's an interest in understanding the grading system, as I understand it, there are some positive changes to that, but I haven't, in particular, the positive changes that I've been told is that it's going to be evaluating students or using information about students and their progression, not just their attainment of certain thresholds. So that is helpful information, helpful for our students, particularly our English language learners. Also, I sent you just before the meeting an article about the difference between public, private, and charter schools. It's one of the best concise summaries of what is the difference between those 3 varieties of educational entities that I've seen, and so I thought you might enjoy something. I also did provide that to everybody on the WLSEF board. The foundation meeting is on June 12th, this Thursday. That is all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Yue, do you have a report?
Yes, I don't have a report, but I have 2 follow-up comments related to the policy. One is I noticed that because we kind of keep going, keep revising the policy one by one. I noticed some inconsistency between different documents. For example, some of the documents have the title all capitalized, some of them are not, in different font size, everything. So just a reminder before we upload the final version, make sure all of them are consistent, and then they will look nicer. And the second thing is, I didn't get chance to talk about one concern I have when we discussed the firearm policy. And I remember at one of the board meetings, Cassie Parker came to talk about the gun safety. So in one important point, I think we need to be very careful is, the parents. And so how parents deal with their guns. I don't know where we should include that information. But if you read the news, almost like most of the tragedies actually relate to the parents. They didn't keep their guns safe. So, and they should put the gun somewhere that not accessible to children and to teenagers, all that, and for their own children's safety and others' safety. But I don't know where we can put that information or remind parents about that. And I feel, that's something I feel not only, okay, don't bring that to school, but if they do, we don't have a way to detect it, right? So I think fundamentally, we need to make sure the parents, the guardians keep their guns in a safe place so that they are not accessible to the children. So I don't know where to put it, but that's something I think of when I read that policy.
So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, we cannot dictate to families what they do in their home.
Yeah,
So
I understand that. That's why I don't know
Kathy's-
where to put it. I just feel, okay,
Right.
what if they quit? I mean, we don't have a way to detect it.
No, we can't require parents to do anything in our policies. We can just control what happens on our own
Yeah.
facility. But I do think that what she gave a presentation on, I also, really listened with interest to that. And I think it becomes a matter of educating. And so if it applies anywhere in policy, it might be to require that there be annual firearm training to families or community, or there might be participation in such. So that would be the only way. We can't tell families how to store their guns or not to have them, regrettably.
Okay, another possibility is, I wonder whether it's possible at all, and we can add one item in the registration system. So, and force parents, guardians to read that reminder, even though, I don't know how much it matters, but it would be good to say, oh, I understand that I need to keep a gun or whatever in a safe place so it's not accessible to my children, and sign your name on it. And something like that, just a reminder for people, hey, this is very important. You need to, just like all the other, emergency contacts, all those just tabs that parents needed to go one by one, which is add one more, like a gun safety issue or something like that. I wonder whether that can be a way to remind them, like a pledge. I will keep my gun in a safe place.
I kind of like the
I don't-
idea of that.
I'm just through ideas. I feel that, otherwise, I see signs, okay, no gun-free zone or something, but tragedy happens in those places. And so it's just, that's only for people who don't violate the law.
So I like the idea of incorporating some variety of educational component to this, and I've written that down on the note. When we get into policy committee, we'll kind of find out what the legal parameters are that we could pursue that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. At this time, we do not expect to have a July meeting, so we will see everyone again on August 4th. At 5 p.m. if we need a work session, and at 6 otherwise. And I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Lawrence moved. Any second? George, thank you. Okay, we have to do roll call. Yui, do you think we should adjourn? Yes. Rachel?
Yes.
Daisha? Lawrence? George? And I do as well.